Episode 1, Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher, emperor. The winter of 161 CE was cruel and unrelenting. In Rome, the halls of power buzzed with whispers of unrest, and on the borders of the empire, armies were stretched thin, fighting enemies whose names Marcus Aurelius would never forget. He was only 40 years old, yet already he had spent decades in preparation. Tutors, mentors, the careful cultivation of a mind trained to think, to reason, to endure. He was about to inherit the throne of the greatest empire the world had ever known, and yet in a quiet chamber, he wrote in Greek, in his own hand, words that would one day outlast kingdoms, his personal reflections meant for no one but himself. Born Marcus Annius Verus in 121 CE, he grew up in a world of wealth and expectation. Yet one of his earliest teachers, the Stoic philosopher Junius Rusticus, impressed upon him a lesson that would shape a lifetime. Virtue is forged through adversity. From his earliest days, Marcus grappled with morality, not only his own, but the fragility of the world around him. He saw death in the faces of friends, illness in the streets of Rome, the impermanence of even the grandest moments, and he reflected on it tirelessly in private notebooks, preparing for the burden he knew would come. When Antonius Pius, the emperor who had adopted him, died, Marcus found himself at the apex of power. Yet he was not born to rule alone. His co-emperor, Lucius Verus, shared the mantle. Together they faced rebellions on the Danube, plague in Rome, and the endless demands of the Senate. Some would have been crushed by such weight. Marcus bore it quietly, using the philosophy he had absorbed to steady his mind. He reminded himself daily, events themselves cannot harm the soul, only the judgment of the events. He wrote this down over and over again, a meditation not on victory or glory, but on how to endure without losing one's humanity. Marcus's life was not abstract. Each day, he confronted the practical realities of leadership, soldiers to inspire, citizens to feed, the corrupt and the ambitious to temper. He watched generals fall, advisors betray, and yet he maintained a discipline that was almost superhuman. And still, the journal entries reveal a man profoundly human. He worried about his own anger, his own impatience. He wrestled with the temptation to despair in the face of war and plague. He questioned himself relentlessly, seeking always to act rightly, to think clearly, to preserve the integrity of the self amid chaos. Yet in all of this, he left not of conquests or marble statues, but of reflection. Meditations written in the quiet hours of night or between campaigns became a guide, not for emperors, but for anyone facing life's uncertainty. Marcus teaches that the strength we seek is already within us, that the tumult of the world need not dictate the state of our minds, and that living thoughtfully, with virtue as a compass, is a task worth undertaking every single day. As he wrote these thoughts, he was acutely aware of morality. His children would die before him, his empire would one day crumble, the streets of Rome would see new generations take power and pass away, and yet he focused on what could be controlled, the work of the mind, the cultivation of character, the daily striving toward wisdom. The emperor became, in his journals, something both ordinary and extraordinary, a man seeking to live rightly despite the enormity of circumstance. Marcus Aurelius did not leave behind an empire untouched by history, but he left something perhaps more enduring, an intimate record of how a human being, in the face of responsibility, uncertainty, and morality, can live deliberately, ethically, and with a sense of calm purpose. In the quiet of his reflections across 2 millennia, his life still speaks, not as an instruction, but as witness, reminding us that the real work of life is done inside the mind. Next week we will meet Seneca, a man of letters and politics, navigating the dangerous corridors of Roman power, whose life and writings offer a striking contrast to the solitary philosopher-emperor. Seneca's story is one of ambition, moral struggle, and enduring insight. Another lens on what it means to live well, under pressure and in the glare of history.